All right. We got it rolling, so. So, thank you, everybody. Welcome. I think most know almost everyone here, so y'all know. Kentucky City Hall. Welcome for taking, and thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your Saturday to join us to talk about the barns, the ranch, which everyone knows is right across the street. A couple housekeeping stuff. If you don't know, there's some waters back there. You're welcome to have one if you want one. You need to drink of something. There's restrooms down each hall. Women's are down this hall, men's down this hall. And we have some boards up. Just the general plan for this morning. So we're going to go through a pretty relatively quick slideshow. There are some image boards up. We do have some more here. So I'm going to run this slideshow and take any general questions. And then we're going to put the boards with the property layout and also the barn layouts on the tables and have you guys, provide any specific comments if you have any right on the boards. We'll just, get post-it notes and pens out, write stuff directly on it. And if you don't know me, my name is Danny Novid. I'm the city manager here in Katati. And we have a project team here. This is Ashley Wilson. She's our recreation manager. And then over here we have, Archeologics is the architect that's been working on it, and Mitch right there. And Gunnar is working with them. And then our landscape architect is Quadriga. And we have Brett right there. And we have one of our licensees here today too, Bryce. He's one of the two licensees in the ranch. And alumni. Yeah, but Tommy here as well, pretty familiar with the ranch. And I think a lot of people here actually are familiar with it since you've been here in the community for many years. But with that, I'll just we'll get rolling in the overview. So this is just a little property history. If anyone doesn't know, history of the property in 2008, the city, with the assistance of the Open Space District, purchased the property. And the deal was, it was a matching grant. And as part of the purchase, they put what they call a conservation easement over the property in exchange for the matching grant. And the open space conservation easement, that's basically what it does. It restricts that property to its agricultural and recreational uses. And, in other words, it can't be developed for housing or any sort of other redevelopment. That's the state, essentially, and that's some use.
Can I ask you a question in relation to that, the original purchase?
Yeah.
What was the historical implications of that? What was the preservation history?
Yeah. The easement basically said agricultural uses and related things to agricultural and recreation, including historical element. Those were all sort of. It was one of the earlier open space conservation easements, so it's relatively broadly written. I think some of the newer ones they're much more specific now, but this was pretty broad. It basically said preserving the agricultural uses on the property as well as related historic and recreation.
And educational?
And educational. Educations. I think, everyone realized at the time that it probably wasn't going to be an actual, full-time working ranch, but it would, but you can leverage a lot of those things to educate the community about, how things used to happen and how you can do things today. Yeah. In 2016, the city constructed the perimeter pathway, so the pathway you see on the school that wraps around the picnic area and goes down El Rancho. That was built in 2016, as well as all the fencing. So all that perimeter fencing that you see up today is all new. And then in 2020, we did an extensive refurbishment of the farmhouse, and we rebuilt the water tower. The water tower was the old water tower wasn't salvageable really, so it got rebuilt in very similar form to what it used to look like. But it's functional now with the ADA restroom at the bottom and the office. And as well as the washing facilities and 88 parking spaces. So then in 2021, we had a new group of licensees. And then we had our initial public workshop for the barns, talking about today. Specifically, that was at the end of the year, 2021. And then in 2022, the city passed an agricultural ordinance, which really opened up a lot of, not just this property specifically, but generally in the city, opened up a lot of different opportunities for people on their private property, as well as the ranch, to do more agricultural type activities. And then there was a second, didn't make on the slide, in 2023, there was a second barn workshop. So the first barn workshop in 2021 was just, it was sort of an open-ended, what do you know, what does the community think about the property and the barns? And then 2023 was some initial concepts. I'll show a slide of what that concept was. And got feedback then, and then 2025, that's here today. We're going to talk about it again, a little bit more refinement by our version you've seen. So the conservation easement, there are some limitations in the conservation easement in terms of the built environment of the property. So the barns that are there are they can't really be used for public purposes. There's some structural issues and other issues related to them, but we do want to preserve a lot of the elements in what we're doing as we move forward. For all the buildings, this includes the ranch house, the water tower, the barns when they get rebuilt, or even the ones that are there now. Greenhouses, anything that's a structure on the site adds to the maximum allowable square footage. And so the maximum allows 10,000 square feet. That's the cap in the open space easement. The maximum height was 24 feet. And to kind of give you a gauge of that, the water tower structure that's out there today, that is 24 feet. So that's the maximum. And also any new structures that are built on the property need to be constructed in close proximity to the farmhouse and distance. So basically in that central area. In other words, we can't build stuff out on the pasture and build structures. And this is the current program that's going on right now. We have a lot of youth enrichment programs, ages 3 to 12. We also have field trips, after school programs. The city rec department also has summer camps out there in addition to the camps that they run. We have a lot of different agricultural and environmental education courses that are happening. Various events throughout the year. Livestock care and management. There's livestock out there. And then we have a small scale crop production. We're starting a pilot sort of vegetable box, kind of like a CSA type program. We're starting it this year, and then hoping, you know, if it goes well, then hopefully expanding it in future years. We have a greenhouse where we're germinating plants. So as the plan is, as the current plants grow up and they get harvested, the new germinated plants will move in the row crop. And then farming, gardening, culinary workshops, and then we also, in the partnership with Zero Waste Sonoma, we offer free compost out there once a month, like when we come in. Yeah. Follow Instagram or Facebook, you'll see that. But I don't know if it's like the first weekend of the month.
Yeah, first Saturday and Sunday of the month, and then I have an email address that it goes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, first weekend of the month, and Bryce, he can get in touch with him. He's the one that manages that program. So this is just summary of some of the feedback that we got before for the brooder barn. That's the historic, poultry area where we have the hens, right? And we're going to keep that element in there. That was some of the feedback. Keep the brooder element so that the chicks can be raised there, but also allow other opportunities for livestock interaction, especially with younger kids, so they can interact with livestock and it'll be a safe way to interact, and also do demonstrations. And so you'll see there's two different barns. There's on these images here, and I'll go through them in a second. There's two different barns. There's the brooder barn, which is the smaller one, and there's a sort of a educational larger barn that's on the left there. That's the multi-purpose barn on this slide. So meeting spaces are in that larger barn. focus on recreation. There's like a relatively small kitchen. It's a kitchen area, I shouldn't say relatively small. There's a kitchen area in there, as well as some medium and small living spaces. And then utilizing the outdoor spaces was sort of the overall, plan property. Continuing to do that. We have a future plan for a farm stand. That would be, something that's street adjacent, where people could, come get farm products. And then integrating historical elements both indoors and outdoors throughout the property. So this was 2023. This was the concept. And you can see, I won't go through a lot of detail, but the two white squares, number 2, that was the brooder barn concept, and then the top one, that's number 1. That was the multi-purpose barn, and then you can see some of the number 5 and above that area is row crops for outdoor food and crop production, and then you have 7. So the concept of 7 was that would be a central meeting place for around the barns and the existing structure for people could meet and do a variety of small scale things there. And then this is the concept that we're talking about today. So you can see it's really not very different from what you saw before if you went to the last one, except it's just more refined. So it's semi-transparent, it's kind of hard to see, but on the right side is the brooder barn, and you can see there's indoor outdoor corrals, and I'll show you a floor plan in a second and talk more detail about what's actually going on there. But the bigger item is the bigger barn above. That's the multi-purpose barn. You can see above it there's some those are going to be tables, like outdoor spaces, is the plan in this concept. And then the row crops. And one new element that wasn't in the prior ones, you see an access, a little access path off of school. So part of what we were thinking through is how we can run multiple things going on at the same time, and allow if you need ADA access, how people with ADA needs can get to the barns and get to the central area. So there's a couple of parking places there, ADA parking places, as well as a pedestrian crossing on school. And if we did a farm stand, it's envisioned right near that area as well. So it gets off of West Sierra and doesn't create all the traffic and other issues there. Okay, Neil, sign in, please. There's a sign-in sheet, next one. But the rest of the property is largely shows you what's going on right now. So we have at the bottom, we have the corner there of school in West Sierra. We have herbs and flowers and berries down there is what's being grown right now. On the other side of the driveway there is we have livestock there, so up against West Sierra. By popular demand, people want to see livestock from West Sierra. And then this concept, they could circulate around the brooder house, the brooder barn, and then into the back pastures, and they could circulate all the way around the horticulture, the row crop area to the school streets. So that whole area would be open to animals. And then we do have some hens. I don't know if you guys follow what's going on at the ranch. There's a bunch of chicks that just hatched there, but we have we have chickens in the bottom in the school Sierra. And then the only other thing I'll point out on this is there's a hexagonal space, and that's intended to be like a covered kind of pergola type outdoor space. So this is the same image that's up on the wall there. This is the multi-purpose farm, and the top image is on the plan is what's shown oriented towards the back pasture. And so the idea there is that's a glass or a glass roll-up type door with 2 sliding barn doors, so you can close it totally down, or you could open them up and have light and not have air, or you could open the whole thing up and it'd be open. The other side, the bottom image is facing inward into that central area. And that's just the entry doors. This is, this doesn't really do it justice because it is flat, but this is intended to be a side profile. On the top image, you can see, on the left end, that's that meeting room. And same concept, sliding, like a roll-up glass door with sliding barn doors. And, that's on, the other areas, like call it the kitchen area, the other roll up there. And on the other side, you can see the same idea. It's, there's some meeting space there with man doors. And then the big sliding barn doors and the roll up is the main meeting room of the barn. Well, I'll get plans out so you guys can see this in more detail. I don't expect you to see all the detail from this scale, but I'll just walk you through real quick. So on the left, you can see this is again the multi-purpose barn. The concept here is that it's 2 stories. The very top of the image is the flex space. That's so just to kind of put it in scale. That's 1,300 square feet. Is shown there. If any of you are familiar with the Cotati room, when you get into the Cotati room, there's like a entry area, and then you get into the main part of the Cotati room. The main part of the Cotati room is 1,600 square feet. So this is 300 square feet less than that. So it's a relatively small space. But it's hard to tell scale on this. So that's but it's a it's a small, it's a small open area, relatively small compared to but similar. Down below on the right is another multi-purpose room with a flexible divider, so you can make it a small room, or you can make it a bigger room. And then on the left side is a culinary, like this is a little commercial kitchen with areas to do demonstrations for cooking or food, prop type things. The rest of the areas, I'll just say the main things to note is there's a central alleyway and an entry area, and that yellow highlighting is intended to be displays. And we're hoping to work with our partners in the Historical Society to get things that we can bring in there. Both material reuse, like with some of the barns now, but also images or displays or other things that. And then on the top, on the right side is the vision of the top floor. So the very top of it is just basically open air. So if you're in that larger flex space at the bottom floor, it's open all the way to the roof, the ceiling. So that's just open. And then the 2 purple areas are meeting rooms. So they're relatively small meeting.
Question about the orientation. The windows on the side of the top floor are facing which way? Or
the windows on the top. On the top floor?
Yeah.
That on that image right there on the far left, that was facing the pasture, after the pasture. Yeah. We've shown this before in prior workshops, but this is the general aesthetic, like the exterior and then some of the interior just open. Not a lot of, especially up in the ceilings, not a lot of finished space, but more open that construction. And then this is the brooder house, so this is a much smaller structure. Actually, we can just put the house slide easier to see here. So this is the interior of it. The general idea is there's paddocks that are indoor outdoor for animals. You can bring animals in and contain them into that paddock. If you're in the central aisle, you'll be able to interact with the animals, but in a safe way because there's like a fence.
what's the square footage?
On this one, do you guys recall the square footage of this? Wait, while they're looking at us. Almost 30. Yeah, right.
About 1,000 square feet covered.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not a really big, 1,000 square feet. Decent, but we have enough room for 3 animal stalls, the central aisle, and the central aisle is both you can do like workshops, demonstrations, and 12 feet is pretty wide, that's like like a freeway lane width, basically, right? And then storage, and then baby chickpeas, as I mentioned before, you have some wash area and other things. You can't really see this in the image, but above the animals is an overhead hay loft, hay storage. And this is the idea with the fenced areas for the animals, so that especially children or people that are afraid of animals, maybe it's a safe way to interact with them without them. That's that's the idea of indoor events. And then outdoors, just these are just some images from some prior slides, but it's, you know, we want to do some landscaping just to make it you know, open and usable for small events. And yeah, you know, a lot of natural materials, especially like when we're talking ADA pathways through the property, you know, making sure that they're flat and packed so that people can come in on wheelchairs, for example, but have a natural look to them. There's not like,
Is PG, ADA compliant?
if it's compacted and has binder in it, can be that. Yeah. But trying to avoid using a lot of concrete, if we can avoid it. So, so this is, so today, the intent was this would be the last workshop to talk about the concept, the schematic designs. And after we get feedback from you all, you know, we're going to incorporate that feedback into some final schematic designs that we then can make available, you know, for the public, because we want to next fiscal year, which is July 1, we want to start looking at fundraising for the construction, because we don't. So we have design money, but we don't have the construction money for the project. So the actual construction date is unknown yet, but once we get through this, we'll use that for fundraising and also start doing design for construction. But
Excuse me, is it this year, July 1st, or next year?
this year,
Okay.
July 1st, yeah.
I'm sure we want to be involved with that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, the more the better, more the merrier. Yeah. So, so the goal here is that this schematic design, these are like 3D, you know, renders, but we're going to have, some more, or I'm sorry, 2D, but we're going to have some 3D renders for that and cost estimates so that we can go out and actually try to tell a story, show what we're trying to get done, and that will help us with fundraising. But while we're doing that, we're doing fundraising in parallel, we will be doing design so that when the money comes together for construction, then we'll be actually ready to do it. And then before we bring the plans out and start getting you guys comments on specific elements of the plan, do you have any general questions? Wants to see it? Yeah. No.
So, great to see that in this envelope, but how do you envisage it being a maintainable structure in the long run? Because the history is all that things where essentially harvested was road past, and also there see that other historic factors in art. I'm just wondering, is there a way of balancing out the structure to be relatively low maintenance into the future, and that actually using new types of ways of doing that? So I don't know if that's being considered, because when we look at something like the signs that we put around, which aren't very nice, but they've also got an aspect that looks like they're like been high maintenance.
No, I mean, we definitely, it's a good point. When we design a structure, I mean, that means once it's built, we're gonna have to maintain it, like forever, right? So you want to have it as low maintenance as possible, for sure, but also make it look nice, right? I mean, you can make a concrete block and it's low maintenance, but it doesn't look very nice.
The flex space
some of the meeting spaces, are you anticipating that will be rented out to the public, like, room votes, to generate revenue to kind of move it?
The meeting spaces, yeah. Right. That's what I would expect, that there would be, some small, small events. Like you saw, the rooms aren't very big, but, for small events. Sure.
So it's kind of a future question, but
Yeah.
In the larger meeting spaces in the larger barn, I don't know exactly what the square footage is, but I remember it was something less than 1,300. Do you have a formula to figure out like how many people could you fit in there in chairs? I'm just kind of curious if you're looking at events. I don't know what that number would be, and I don't know if there's a formula for it, so
Yeah.
I don't know the answer right now, but just.
Well, I can tell you right now. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know about the formula, but just a good analogy is the cottage. So, and the cottage is a little bigger, right? Right. And this, we can, for events, we can seat, like at tables, we can seat about 100.
Yeah.
And this is smaller than that, so, it would be less than that. But, I mean, 75 to 85, maybe, somewhere less than 100. Yeah.
So Jamie, one thing that I'm very confused about is, if people can get into the second story, if it's ADA compliant, doesn't need an elevator or something?
As long as we provide equivalent facilities on the ground floor, we don't need an elevator.
Really?
That's fine. Right. Yeah. So if we have someone that's ADA access needs, then they would have priority. Like if, for example, reserving one of the rooms in the bottom floor, then they would have priority access for that. And somebody that didn't have an ADA need to get brought to the top one. I mean, in terms of like, facility.
I see that there's a number of fruit trees that are listed up there. What's the plan scenario? You can have them all in one area or scattered throughout the property. Keep the animals.
Yeah. How to keep the animals from being coming out?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Actually, that's something we've been talking about, how to do that, because there probably will, the plan that was showed at least one area with some fruit trees and kind of grouped together by like the main access area off of school. So there was a plan showed that, like that area, having some these fruit trees along that access road. But I think generally they're probably gonna be distributed, not on the fence line, the animals can get all that fruit off of them, but distributed around. I know, just on our conversations. So Bryce has been working on that. How to distribute them throughout, because it also has some utility in education as well. You can, property's not that big that you need to worry too much about it, but you want to be able to harvest them relatively efficiently. For the box programs, or culinary programs, or whatever. But you're right, keeping them away from animals and using them for the other purposes. Because we have educational things going on that might happen in a part of the property, but another part of the property is something else is going on. So it's good, some of that distribution can be good.
I have a question, maybe it's for Bryce and you. If we were to magically have the money tomorrow and start construction, how much of an impact is that on you operating?
Well, I mean, given that the existing historical buildings are not particularly accessible, there's going to be some inevitable impact from site access for purposes, and likely some kind of temporary fencing to keep the animals back from the construction. We haven't really gotten to that point, but I mean, there is going to be some coordination with construction sequencing, and the only major impact to the space that we're currently using for crop production is that new aisle entrance off of the East School is going to require the roads to kind of go out towards the west. Not a huge impact. I think it's only a 12-foot lane or something around there. So that's not going to be a huge position.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think access to that site is limited in its current capacity, so if it's gonna be, if we're gonna be increasing usage, it needs an additional egress location, so.
Yeah,
That's just an inevitability.
for construction access, I think like there's some plants right along the fence line right now at the horticultural road up area.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's gonna put it out replantable, we're keeping in mind our not making permanent plantings in areas that we know are obviously gonna require improvements for the overall plan to come through.
Yeah, but it is like temporary construction fencing in sequence in coordination. Yeah.
So looking at the outside seating, that is on the west side of the big barn, right? If you're looking from
The outdoor
the
seating on the
west
west
side.
side, yeah.
So the access to that is going to be through the flex space, of course, I'm sure from the
Yeah.
kitchen, it's gonna have that opening, but majority of foot traffic will be through the flex space.
Well, in terms of accessing, you might want to put in that in the site plan. You could get to it from the, like if you're having some sort of event in there and you keep on going back, you could go out one more. You could go out the doors from so the flex space is if you're looking at the top barn there, it's, pointed north, I guess, right? But the seating is on the west side. It's above it, yeah. So there's doors that go out to the west from that main space. So if you're in, like if you have an event and you want to be sort of indoor outdoor, you could just walk right out to that area. Or if you're not having any sort of event at all in the morning, you could get to it just around the barn.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Tom.
We talked about this before, the central open space for events. I had suggested putting it in grass, because then it could still be useful for events, but I'm wondering if we did that, if that would then decrease the developed footprint, so we could use that footprint elsewhere, like making the buildings larger, or would that still be the same developed footprint?
It'd be the same development. Yeah, they look at like vertical structures as square footage.
So the central open space, whether it's in grass or compressed, or if it's still the same amount of developed footprint. Okay.
It is, yeah. I mean, as far as open space is concerned, yeah. Yeah, I mean, surprisingly though, anything that's vertical, they consider, footprint. So even what you'd think of, like what greenhouses, even a little tool shed,
Yeah.
they call that footprint.
And this is
David, at this point, what is the city most interested
Well,
in relation to this project?
basically, increasing community access, I would say, for agricultural education and historic education and recreation uses. I mean, right now, those are the uses that we, got the property for. And, we can't fully utilize that yet because, some parcels aren't fully developed yet. But, once it's developed, then we can hopefully get a lot more community access. There's a lot of people to be there and be able to, learn about the range and learn about.
So the historical aspects are actually not as important to you as the access to the public.
I mean, I would say access to the public is the main thing, just getting people to be able to experience the ranch. But once they're there, that's all the things. I mean, it's historic. You'd like them to be able to go there and come away, knowing more about the history of the ranch and hopefully knowing more about agriculture and how it was done here in Sonoma County, how you can do it, how you can apply that today, even if you have just a little subdivision lot. How can you take certain bits of that and apply it in your own backyard?
Cool.
Yeah.
Is part of the vision that I'm currently right now, when I hear from people, that it's really nice driving by, but it doesn't feel like you get some sort of public access. But currently there's a gate on the entrance, so the idea would be that the gate would be removed with the two access points. People could drive in and if they just want to walk around and enjoy the exterior of the property and
It's a good question. You know, we haven't, the access off of West Sierra probably was state gated, I think normally. But it's a good question about East School. I mean, we keep that open. We haven't really sorted all that out yet, you know, but. Well, turkeys break in anyway. I mean, there's no excluding them. I think probably somebody found some turkey eggs in the kid.
There's just be a long out there with 9 eggs.
Oh, jeez.
There's more coming. Yeah, but I think the main thing is just security and safety. So if it can be designed in a way that's secure and safe, like what you're talking about is almost like a park type use where someone can just wander into it. I'm not sure yet, you know, but I think if there's a way to secure it down, maybe that's a possibility.
And that was, Janet Orchard wanted to be here, but she had her brother passed away, so she couldn't, that was her question. She said, you know, I can drive by and I can look in there, but I feel like it's not open for public access. And she was involved in, getting that property. And that was one of the biggest concerns for her was public access.
Yeah. Yeah. I know early on, the pathway and the picnic area, all that was intended to at least provide early public access before we could get the interior stuff ready to be open to the public. But it's a good thought on the school street side. If there's a way to keep it so that that it's secure and that nobody will get themselves.
Well, there's access on the backside too. What road is that? Not full.
Sure.
Is that on the right? So there's access through there too. There's a gate.
There is a gate, but it's more like for animal loading, unloading, compost, used for compost, loading and unloading. I don't think we let people just wander off into that field.
No, but when it's built, is that going to be an access point?
Not generally, not unsupervised for the public. I mean, we do allow people to come in there, supervised, but not us.
So most of the parking is not going to be on the ranch itself.
Generally the parking is going to be City Hall, across the community center. Yeah, I'm not saying that there might not be, I suppose if you had some sort of event, maybe you could open up the backfield for like parking, if you got the animals out of there. That's not the plan right now, because I think the concern is, once vehicles driving through there, it would compact the pasture, limited, the greater space. So the thinking right now is that the community center, City Hall parking.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of parking available, along School Street. And most of the time you go by, it's half full already. So it seems like you need some additional parking.
Yeah.
If you want to follow the use of one.
Yeah, we definitely. Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely do want to encourage people to use this. Yeah, all right. You guys ready to?
One question, if you have, displays, they could be at historical displays or something up in the outside area, does that count as footprint as well?
No, signs don't. I mean, there are some signage, like limitations. But they don't count. No. No, but I think that the interpretive that channels, that's maybe you're thinking of. I don't think that won't be a problem. I think it's the signage issues that come up with open space are more like big display signs, like on that.
Come here.
Yeah, like like a lighted, like they don't want like the Las Vegas. Unfortunately. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so they do have like exterior kind of, wayfinding general signage limitations, but I don't think there's really any limitations on interpretive signage on the property. Because that's part of the purpose, so people can educate themselves.
Yeah, I'm just surprised they do greenhouse and crowds, I'm thinking about it, everything's up for grabs, is.
I know, we were surprised too. We were surprised too, but it's fine.
Okay.
All right, so we got the plans out.